What's up, everybody? Chris with Classic Home Concepts here, back with Kenzie for another episode. I would like to let you all know that she completely messed up the countdown. And for like 30 seconds, I was like, you got to hit Glow Live. And she wouldn't do it. She said, nope, it's going to work. Who was right on that one?
Me.
No, never.
Technical error.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk all about decks. We're kind of just jump in if you want and get started on some of the questions I have and just kind of go over everything you need to know about a deck.
Okay, tell me everything I need to know.
No, you tell me everything I need to know.
Oh, I'm the expert. Okay. This could be scary.
So let's start with like what kind of deck services do we offer? Do we reskin decks, that kind of thing?
Unless it's a very special situation, no, we're not going to be reskinning. And the reason for that, for those that don't know, reskinning is basically just like taking off the decking boards or redoing the hand railing or something like that, which oftentimes is a viable option. My problem is one of the things that we want to do is stand behind the product that we produce. And it's really hard to do when we're building on top of someone else's foundation. So
Makes sense.
Old framing might not be square. Someone else might not have put it up the way we do, things like that. And so, you know, unless it's just a really, really special circumstance, no, that's not typically something we offer.
Okay. What kind of deck services do we offer?
So the two most common ones are just your standard treated wood, which around here is treated pine. And then we also have a composite option, which composite is a man-made material that's going to last longer, has much less maintenance, but it's going to be quite a bit more expensive as well.
Okay. Do we finish decks? Like if we do a wood deck, are we going to stain it and finish it to the customer's wants?
No, what we usually do is we have a couple people that we kind of recommend out that all they do is painting and staining.
Okay.
And so, you know, really when we started doing this probably a year ago is when we really started to kind of focus in on what we really wanted to do day in, day out. And so we had to just decide and draw lines somewhere.
Right.
You know, so painting and staining, not typically something we do. And we just want to be really good at the things we do and let the experts that paint and stain do that for us.
Awesome. The design services and the 3D renderings. Can you kind of talk about that? Oh, hold on. Let's see our comment first.
Yeah, we have a comment. Brad Hebner. Hey, buddy. Haven't talked to you in a while. Is there really a difference between different composite materials and different brands? So yeah, absolutely. There's a difference in grade. In brands, that's probably like saying is a Chevy or a Ford better. I think a lot of the time there's a negligible difference on that. But as far as the grades go, absolutely, because, you know, with a really entry level composite deck, it's going to have just a thin layer of the composite around kind of a filler in the middle. And there'll be like scallops cut out of the bottom sometimes rather than a full solid board to save on materials. And then as you step up, you're going to get a fully encapsulated product that is color all the way through. Scratching is going to be much less apparent. It's going to wear better, stuff like that. Thanks for jumping in, though. Glad to see you're here, man.
While you're talking about that, I have a question.
Okay.
How does composite hold up to like sun damage and fading and things like that?
So most of the big brands are going to have some sort of fade warranty. They're going to have a fade guarantee, so it doesn't. Ironically, kind of when this all started, when I first used composite was probably back in like 06, 07, somewhere in there. And I remember like 50% of the decks, whether we started with red decking or dark gray or whatever, would turn into just this like weathered light gray grossness. So we did a lot of replacing when they first came out. Luckily, the suppliers typically honored that and took care of us.
Right. Okay. Are there any other differences on composite and wood that you want to talk? Like, why would composite be a better investment from the get-go over doing a wood deck?
Absolutely, maintenance and then life of the product too. So with your typical wood deck, regardless of if you go with treated or you go with cedar, you're going to want to stain it every 1 to 5 years, depending on how much wear there is. You know, if is it got direct sunlight or is it covered, stuff like that. And staining's a pain. You got to power wash it or get the old stain completely off. And which then if you don't do that right, you look at like scouring the boards or on older wood, you can actually like remove some of the material as you're power washing.
Right.
With composite, you don't do that. As long as you're not like in a place where there's no airflow and you got to worry about mold or something, not even mold, more mildew, you really don't have any maintenance. You kind of clean it off if it gets dirty, and that's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some different options that we can like add to decks? Different coverings or features?
Well, before we jump there, while we're still talking about wood versus composite, the only thing really that I ever see, or the two things I would say that are kind of negatives for composite are actually three. One would absolutely be price. Most composite boards, you need to frame the frame a little more stout because that composite flexes more, especially as it gets hot. And two, cost point. If a deck that's treated costs $10,000, a composite one really might cost 17, 18, 20,000.
Okay.
Depending on the railing kit you pick and all that fun stuff.
Right. Okay. There's lots of colors and different options though with the composite.
Yeah. So that's one of the cool things is, especially depending on brand, there's going to be 15, 20 different options. And when you get into the really higher stuff, some of them actually like look like they'll have color variation to look like real wood.
Okay.
Most of the middling ones where we do a lot of our projects are a standard color or might have like two colors, but some of the really high end ones have 2, 3, 4 hues and variations to really make it look like wood again.
Right. I've seen some of those that are like the two-tone where like the decking itself is one color and then the skirting or the railings are a different color.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. That's what's really fun when we get into composite stuff is you can really mess with color combinations and things like that where maybe we'll do like one of my favorite ones to do is do a really dark brown decking and then do white skirting and white railing.
Oh yeah.
Or do white railing with black balusters because that really helps them like kind of get out of the way and not ruin your view.
Right.
With wood, you can't do that.
So are all those different color options available to see on our 3D rendering? Like putting them together?
Yeah. So one of the cool things about the software that we use is it actually imports a lot of the big names. So Trex, TimberTech, Fiberon, I think there's a couple more, but it will actually bring those in. And so you get the actual colors in your rendering.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So do you want to hop over to the different options we can add?
Sure. Let's go.
So talk about covering a deck. A lot of people want some kind of sunshade or weather protection. So what can we offer for that?
Kind of the gamut, everything from just doing a standard pergola on top of it, which creates shade in all but like the very middle of the day is going to create some of that, which I guess I should explain kind of what each thing is as we go. So a pergola is just going to be basically another deck frame above our heads. And typically it'll have boards running both ways perpendicular to each other. The ones on top are called purlins and so that just kind of helps block as much of the sun as possible to give you as much shade while still leaving that open, airy feeling.
Okay.
Another option we can do, which we don't typically do, it's kind of the middle one that's honestly probably the least popular, is we could do a prefabricated roofing system, which is usually like a 3-inch foam that's kind of sandwiched between two pieces of aluminum. The nice part there is it's very cost effective. It's completely waterproof, so you don't have to worry about like not being able to use it when it rains or anything like that.
Right. And who doesn't love the sound of rain on some metal roofs?
Absolutely. That is one of my favorite parts. And because of it's a solid piece, you don't have to worry about the slope, which when we talk about actually stick building a roof, we'll talk about kind of what you need. But if you have like height requirements or you need something to be really low profile, that is a good option sometimes.
Okay.
And then the third option would be just traditionally framing in a ceiling system. And again, there you can kind of go crazy from just a standard roof with like an aluminum soffit underneath, or we can vault it and put stained wood and add lights and fans and
as fancy as you want to go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So I had never seen this before, but we just completed a deck that had like a windscreen added to it. Would you want to explain what that windscreen is and what it kind of does?
Yeah. So in this particular instance for them, they live in a neighborhood, but have a really busy street right next to them. And so it does help with the breeze, but it also was good for them to kind of block some of the sound so that they didn't feel like they were living right on the freeway.
Okay.
And then it's also a really good option for that same thing when you have units that are really close. So like if you have a duplex or a quadplex or a bunch of townhouses or something and you wanted to have some privacy from your neighbors who are 2 feet away,
Right.
that's a really good option for that.
Yeah, add some privacy in there.
Yeah. And again, we can do really fun stuff there where, with designs, it doesn't have to just be horizontal boards or vertical boards, but we can get decorative with it too.
Okay. What about different options for railing?
All of the above again. So the standard one would be like for a treated deck, would just be a 2x4 top and bottom rail with a 2x2 wood baluster. And then I usually put a drink rail on top of it so people can set a beverage down or, their coffee, whatever they want. Kind of the next step was then you could, if we're still doing wood, you can move to like black aluminum balusters, which again go from 2 inches wide to, maybe half an inch wide. And then from there we get into the more of the composite systems or the aluminum railings, and they've got hundreds of profiles there. Then if you want to get really fancy, and we've actually never installed one of these, so if you're watching and you want a really, really, really high-end deck, call me and let's please do this. They make these glass railing systems that have lights built into the bottom, and so it like adds ambiance.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, they're super cool, but I've never done one.
Right. Okay, we got another comment over here. It's from Courtney.
The wife is watching. Hi, baby. What if someone wants the screws hidden and not seen? How would you do that? So that's actually really common. There's 2 ways. If it's a treated deck, then they make a couple different fastener systems where basically like, so if this is the board, this is weird. I've never done this on the podcast. Then like through the edge, it like clips onto the board and then goes down through the edge of the board and into the deck framing below. If it's composite, then you can order all your composite boards to have a little channel, and then there'll be a clip that goes in and sets down, and then you screw in. So on composite, our standard detail is going to be a hidden fastener. The only place we can't do that is going to be on the skirting, and if we do like a picture frame. So a lot of times we'll run boards this way, and then we'll have a picture frame around the whole thing. And it could be the same color, it could be a contrasting color.
Okay.
Those boards, there's no way to clip it in. Usually we'll be hanging over the edge or something like that.
Right.
So what we've done in the past and what we still do sometimes is we do a color match screw. And most manufacturers make a screw that's the same color as whatever you're using, and then you use some touch-up paint in case like the drill bit slips or whatever and exposes raw metal. But something I really like, and some people who do just decks have been doing for quite a bit longer, but we just started incorporating, is there's actually a little system called Cortex plugs. And so basically once you use your screw, it leaves a hole that's a certain size, and then you get these plugs that are basically little pieces of decking, and you just put them in that hole and use a rubber mallet and hit them down, and it makes it almost completely invisible.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Just takes a little bit of extra work for prep.
Right.
Yeah. Great question, honey.
Keep them coming. We like having questions.
Absolutely.
So kind of off the railing, what about like steps versus ramps? Can we do either one for either kind of deck? And
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can really even get into fun, crazy stuff. Like there's some guys that I watch that are full-time deck builders. That's all they do. And they've got these blankets that they'll heat up the composite, and then you can bend it. And so you can take a board and bend it and make like radius edges and rounds. And there's some guys that'll do like inlays for like a logo. I mean, they get really crazy with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then one other thing I wanted to talk about while you're talking about like things we can do on decks. that I like to do a lot is put on an underdeck system.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple different manufacturers, but kind of the question Brad was asking earlier, a lot of them are pretty similar. What it does is it basically creates a ceiling system underneath your deck. So if you have like a basement or just your backyard is really deep, so you can have a dry area under there. And so it just screws up to the existing deck framing. It catches all the water, it funnels it out to a gutter system, and then you have that entire second patio area that's dry without having to create another structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a comment from Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. Yes, we can talk about siding. What are the pros and cons of vinyl versus steel look that's popular now? So there's going to be a really, really, really big difference in price for one. But vinyl is going to be kind of your entry level. And they make some nicer products, but it's just not going to stand up to a lot of the things that we do every day. So you're mowing the yard and it throws a rock. After a couple of years, that vinyl can be brittle enough that it can break. And a lot of the vinyl that gets put up, especially in the Springfield area, doesn't have any backing. And actually, that's a really good deal. So take a note, because the guys are doing a siding job right now that has foam backing. And I think it'd be cool to show everybody. So we'll get Jordan to do a video and talk about the difference between that and not backed.
Okay.
Vinyl is also going to be, depending on the thickness of it, going to have more tendency to warp with heat. We'll see a lot of times like over garages where people park in front of the garage and maybe not in the garage all the time, that the sun will bounce off car windshields, reflect onto it, or you'll see it on houses that are close together, or like just this one spot is warped. Well, a lot of times that's because the sun's bouncing off their neighbor's window back onto their siding. Steel, you're never going to have that issue. Steel is quite a bit more expensive, but it's steel. So the nice thing is it's there forever. Even if the finish, if you get something really nice and pre-finished a certain color, worst case scenario, you have it sandblasted or stripped and you repaint it. So in that instance, even if you're paying 2 or 3 times the price, you're doing it one time, where typically vinyl, depending on the grade again, is a 15 to 20 year product.
Okay.
Especially because like to get the manufacturer's estimated lifetime, you're supposed to go out and wash it twice a year. Most people probably aren't doing that.
Right.
Yeah, there's some maintenance.
Most people probably don't have a husband that goes crazy with the weed eater and like chips all the vinyl at the bottom of your house.
I bet a lot of people do have husbands that do that. So that's actually one of the things we recommend a lot when we do vinyl, especially if you like that kind of detail, is we'll do like a faux stone at the bottom. We've started doing that quite a bit, and at least recommending it, because then you don't, if something does happen, or if a kid's kicking a ball, or like both of my kids are in soccer right now. Yeah. The house gets hit a lot. Right. So, that's a lot less likely to bend and break and chip and all that. This particular area of the country is really vinyl heavy. Almost every other siding is better, in my opinion.
Okay. She said something else. Let's see what...
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Okay. Backwards to kind of on the deck side of things. We've talked about before, like seating, seen on different decks where they've kind of built in benches around like where the railing would be. Is that something that we offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that we really like to do. Obviously, we'll give you a price of what just like a 16 by 16 deck is or whatever. But when we really start having that conversation and digging a little deeper, we like to talk about use case. Do you want a big area for your grill? Are you wanting the grilling area to be separate from like your dining area, so that you could have whoever's running the grill can have a conversation and not feel like they're yelling over the people sitting at the dinner table? Do you like the idea of built-in seating with the composite decking rather than just a railing system?
Right.
Building a deck that's really just you and Seth and your kids, because in this particular instance, you guys go a lot more places, whether you're out camping or whatever, but you don't typically have 15 or 20 people over. that deck's going to be a lot different than someone who says they love to entertain and they love to be
Right.
outside and
Have someone there every weekend. And
yeah, we're going to think about that and make sure there's different places for people to sit and a bunch of different options for them.
Right. Okay. What we also kind of talked about, like built-ins, for your grill or your other outdoor cooking accessories.
Mm-hmm.
So what do those look like?
Yeah, I mean, it can look like whatever you want. We can really put an entire outdoor kitchen on the deck.
Okay.
The big thing there is just planning. You know, if we're going to put a full outdoor kitchen there and a bunch of options and stuff, then we probably want to account for that weight a little more, beef up some of the framing and the structure to make sure that there's never going to be an issue.
Right.
But something as simple as just creating some extra shelving, you know, instead of having a 6-inch drink rail like this, maybe around where the deck's going to go, maybe we do a bigger, wider thing so that you have a place to set your platters and all of the things that you need to grill and be successful.
Okay. My last question about accessories is hot tubs. That's a commodity.
It's hot tubs are a hot conversation, huh?
They are.
Okay.
To go out on your back deck and sit in the hot tub. Do you recommend one kind of deck over the other for that, or is either one okay? You know, I automatically think of moisture and wood. So
yeah, no, either one's okay. 2 things to consider there. One, again, proper planning. Please don't go put a full deck or pull a full hot tub on a deck that wasn't built for it, because those hot tubs can be 6,000-7,000 pounds.
So you have to prepare for that when you put it in.
So I actually was just reading an article about it. So I remember the specific numbers, but the average deck, like just 2 code, is built for about 50 square feet of dead load. And dead load is something that's not moving. So a hot tub, a chair, something like that.
Right.
Hot tubs can get up to like 180 pounds per square foot.
Wow.
So you're 5xing, 4xing your limits. You could have some catastrophic failures there.
Right. Yeah. And on the subject of hot tubs, I've also seen, we'll get to Courtney's comment in just a second. I've also seen where they already have like a deck on their patio, or a hot tub on their patio, but they want to build their deck around that. Is that something we could do too? And like leave the hot tub on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it gets kind of fun, where I was talking about picture framing earlier, is we can take the decking boards and really like frame out that hot tub and make it look nice and decorative. And then you don't have to worry about the live load from putting it on a deck.
Right. Okay, let's see what Courtney said. We got a couple comments. The first one.
Cool. As with everything, there are trends. What do you see trending now with the decks? Fancy, especially on social media. Some of the guys I watch are just incredible, but a lot of it is. So this is kind of a bigger conversation. This is a great question, Court. One thing that I've really seen lately, and we've talked about it, and I've talked about it with several other of my contractor friends, is just a general rise of quality, like a true desire to be a master craftsman. And I think social media is just showing it off more, but I think that's also inspiring people that might have just built a deck and said, oh, that's all right.
Right.
That'll be okay. The customer's happy enough to really go out and chase something. And you know, I've seen everything from guys biscuit joining decking to make sure that the gaps stay nice and tight, to running screws different ways to hold it. Like it's just really cool to see that there's pride back in the trades. You know, one of the things that, I mean, our company logo is modern technology, classic quality. And to me, that's an ode to old school craftsmen. The people who would just take raw wood and use hand planes and chisels and build something that wasn't so fast-paced built. I feel like we had a real big swing in the 80s and 90s, especially when a bunch of kids were getting told that, you know, hey, going into the trades isn't respectable. You need to go to college. You can't make anything out of yourself in the trades. When that was happening, we had a big push for just get it up.
Right.
You know, we want the cheapest deck we can get. We want the cheapest siding, which is where vinyl came from. We want just the cheapest thing you get. And even today, you still see clients ask, hey, someone recommend this person, or someone recommend me a person to build a deck. I want the cheapest or the most affordable.
They always want that. The most affordable, the fastest you can be there.
Right. and the best quality.
Right. And the best quality. All three.
The honest answer is you only get to pick two of those.
Right.
You can have cheap and fast. It won't be good quality most of the time.
Right.
You can have quality and fast. It won't be cheap. But just an overall rise in pride in the trades is probably one of the biggest things that I've seen. But specific trends is definitely deck board bending. It's really cool to see, like Dr. Decks on Instagram does it a lot, where they put these blankets on and they'll do like these big arching S curves. And mixing colors is really big right now.
You know, our phones listen to us and they know everything that we're always talking about. And so, you know, you and I discussed what we're going to talk about next week on podcasts and that. So my phone has been showing me everything I need to know about decks for the last week. And
so you can sit in my seat and be the be the expert.
No. I like the pictures. Okay. But like my Pinterest even is exploding at that. And I see so many people with multi-level decks where up around their pool is high and then lower down for their cooking station is low, or they have a 2-story deck that kind of goes down to a platform down to their basement deck or lower level deck. And like, I think that is so cool how you can tie all that kind of stuff in together to make one big deck. Yeah.
Well, so it's a really easy, it's kind of creating rooms in a deck. You know, so Court, for those of you who don't know, has a degree in interior design, and is phenomenal at what she does. But when we talk about things about design and stuff like that, one of the things that comes up sometimes is space planning. Well, in a house, you can just make another room. How do you do that with a deck? You're going to put a railing across the middle?
By the time you get a grill and a smoker and a fryer and a big green egg and everything that you could possibly put on a deck, and then try to put tables and chairs. And
well, and so that's one of the things that I really do like about that multi-level is you can play with levels, and then, you know, hey, over here's kind of a seating, talking, chit-chatting area. Over here's an area for this. Like, it's a really good way to kind of separate and distinguish different areas for different uses.
And I'm sure that's also very accommodating for entertaining, that you can have multiple conversations going on at multiple parts of the deck, you know? And I think about, we both have young kids. Like, I think about that too, like putting the kids up on their own area, you know, and then letting the adults mingle or whatever. Like, I think that, like you said, provides good spacing.
You don't like it like our family always did and everyone just screamed over each other?
No, our family's great for that. All right, we got some more comments in here. Let's do it. Courtney else.
What do you like and dislike about these trends? I think my biggest one, the quality thing, I love. Like, that was, I mean, to go and tell a little bit of my story. I didn't want to go to college. And I literally remember like talking to my guidance counselor, and she's like, oh, well, you got great grades. You did good on your ACT, like, you need to go or you're not going to be worth anything. And so I went and I got a degree in construction management, but then I came right back to what my heart said. And so finding pride in the trades and getting kids to realize that, hey, you can go make something of yourself. You know, you can go be making $25 an hour in the time it takes you to go get your degree, and you still have no student loans.
Right.
Whereas I know a lot of people that went to school and are working back at restaurants, or, you know, now they're getting into the trades, or like the ones that hit my heart the most is social workers. You know, people go and spend all this money on school, and then they go and do this really incredible, powerful thing of getting kids out of bad situations. And the last person I talked to made like 28 grand a year doing it. I mean, just not valued for what they do.
Well, I think that about our teachers also.
Absolutely.
I mean, being a parent last year with coronavirus and staying home and teaching my kids virtual learning, I was not cut out to be a teacher, and they do not get paid near enough for what they do in a day.
I do think, you know, that's probably one good shining thing that came out of COVID is hopefully parents realized exactly how much teachers do for us.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely grateful. Like, I think I even told you on the first day of school, like, God bless Jared's teacher, because she's in for a hard one this year.
Right. Like, yeah, absolutely.
And he's a good kid. He's just ornery, but
yeah. To give you a more direct answer, Court, I just like that everything's clean. you know, we're a lot of times we're out of. It's very separated. It's either we're going really rustic with like old hand hewn timbers, or we're going more modern. And so we're going clean lines. We're going like the Regalia railing system that I was talking about. That's the all glass one.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing and it's beautiful.
Right.
And I love those clean lines and things like that, which I'm kind of a modern person anyway, as far as styling. So I like that clean, sleek, almost,
yeah, you should see us design a sign together. We do not have the same taste.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on today's trends. What have you seen? What do you like? Tell me more, Court.
So this is from Craig.
What do you recommend to customers for deck protection options for grills? So can you give me a little bit of clarification there, Craig? Are you talking about like a mat underneath to make sure stuff doesn't get stained? Or are we worried about like radiant heat? I could go a couple different ways with that. So chime in, let me know what you mean.
All right. And then Sarah said,
is it more helpful to have someone show you their Pinterest page, or would you rather create their dream deck together without outside influence? I am a Pinterest snob. Please get on there. Please find 17 things that you like. Please show all of it to me. And then let's talk about specifically what you like and why you like it. It's really, really helpful to have a visual of what someone's seeing. And that's one of the reasons we do the design stuff too, is because, you know, you could say, I want this and that. And in my head, that looks vastly different than what it does in yours.
Right.
And especially when we're talking about bigger decks and a sizable investment, like I want to nail that. I want to nail it the first time.
Well, and I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said why they like that about their inspiration. Because if they like it for space or for seating, we can also recommend different options or other options that would achieve those same goals without, you know, necessarily being this exact same way. Or if they only like that this one has lots of room. Well, these are all the ways we can give you lots of room, you know.
Right.
I think that really finding out their why is the key to that.
Right. I will say to your question, Sarah, a little bit more. It's different for someone who has a really good grasp on what they want. A lot of times clients come to us and they're like, well, I want a deck. Okay, well, what does that look like? I have no idea.
Right.
And they kind of struggle being able to vocalize what their vision is. And so that visual aid from Pinterest really helps us find, oh, hey, this looks a lot like what I see in my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. And then I think Craig commented back.
Yeah, good. Radiant heat and the mats. I'm not a fan of the mats due to discoloration and moisture retention. Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you would pick the mat up when you're not using it, because you're right, discoloration and moisture retention does happen. I don't know that there's a real good way around it. My easy answer would be to have a roof. Then you don't get the sun and you can just have that mat to catch grease and stuff like that. Radiant heat, we just want to make sure that we're using materials that are rated for it, and making sure that the deck is, if we're doing like a built-in grill, we can do like concrete, like hardy backer board built in, and then hide that with the decking in other places so that becomes kind of a heat barrier. I've done that a couple times.
Okay. But
as far as the floor, I mean, there's not a ton you can do unless you clean it up after yourself. Grease is just a pain. It stains clothes.
Well, and so I was thinking, you know, not necessarily even your normal grills, but, you know, Blackstones and griddles and that kind of thing are so popular nowadays. And we took ours down to the lake, and I mean, ours is a tabletop, but there was grease all over the sides of those tables. Like, I couldn't imagine having that on my deck and not having something down to protect.
Yeah, I'd say honestly, the biggest thing is just like part of your cleanup needs to be wiping down the decking or, you know, cleaning up after yourself and not letting that grease sink in and stain and really do its business.
Right. Okay. So we're on that kind of topic of maintenance of your deck and, you know, your cleaning process. What are some tips that you give homeowners of, like, is there any different maintenance they need to do, like even the first year compared to over time? And what does maintenance look like of each kind of deck? Yeah,
so I'll answer the easier one first. Composite, there's really not. Like I said, if it gets grease on it, clean it off. If it starts to collect dirt, use water. Maybe if it's like really dirty, use like a really diluted down Dawn to
something non-abrasive.
Yeah, something that you don't want to go using like people that use Armor All to detail their cars. Well, that's greasy and it actually makes your stuff crack faster.
Right.
So a lot of times just a little bit of soap and water, clean it up. And that's really it for composite. That's kind of one of the nice parts about it.
Okay.
With wood, you're going to want to get it stained immediately.
Okay.
If it's treated. If it's cedar, you can make the decision, do you want to let it naturally gray out? Like you see in pretty Cape Cod houses with the shakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really popular look. But yeah, you definitely want to get it stained. The bad part with treated is you can't stain it until that treatment has dried out.
Okay.
And so depending on where it's at and how much sunlight it gets, that could be in a month, and how wet, quote unquote, it was when you got the lumber. That could be in a month or that could be in a year. Mm-hmm. Just depending, if it's fully shaded all the time, it might not be ready and it's not usually an actual year, but if like you build in the summer and then you can't stain when it's January.
Right.
So you end up waiting until that next spring.
Okay. Craig has a couple more comments for us.
Cool.
He likes the hardy option.
Yeah.
And then side note,
I also very much agree about the trades. College works for some kids and trade schools are the right choice for others. It's been hard to hire in the trades, and I love seeing the level of craftsmanship and pride appearing more on social media. Hopefully it is inspiring the new generations to continue our craft and be able to be proud of what they built, right? Like, I was book smart. I was good at it, but that's not where my heart was. I couldn't imagine being at a desk job for the rest of my life and being miserable because someone said, well, you can't go build beautiful things and get paid accordingly for it. Also, like for me, we talk about pride. Where does everybody spend the vast majority of their lives?
At home.
At home.
Unless you're me. We're never at home.
You pay your doctor really, really well to take care of your body the best he can. Obviously, you have diet and maintenance type things that you need to do for yourself. But in my mind, if you're willing to pay for the best doctor, why wouldn't you want the best craftsman too? Mm-hmm. We're not home builders, but we work for some really, really good ones that have a lot of attention to detail. And do you want the guy who's just going to slap it up and use the cheapest materials, or do you want a guy who's going to build this amazing structure that's airtight and controls the airflow and make sure air quality is big? It's properly insulated. It's not going to be drafty, all of these things, and make sure that it's just a really well-built house. That guy's not going to be the cheapest option.
Right.
Now, he doesn't have to be the most expensive because there's always going to be someone out there that wants to just charge more than is reasonable and try and rip someone off. But you definitely pay for what you get.
Right. Well, and I think with this, some people start their own construction business, or they're just a contractor because they're there for a paycheck. But I see it every day. Like we all, even our guys, really take pride in the work. I mean, a job that we finished yesterday, the homeowners were bragging about how good of a job they did. And we take pride in that. We take pride that we sent guys out to their house that impressed them and, that they were happy with the quality of work. And so I think that's kind of what sets apart those contractors that, just try to whip stuff together as quick as they can to the ones that do take pride in their work. Like you're going to get more quality if you're focused on that pride of making sure your homeowner is happy with the work.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And we weren't talking about how to hire the right contractor today, but you just brought on a couple of things that made me think, some of the questions that people obviously ask is like, how much is it going to cost? How far out are you? But ask when you're interviewing other contractors, us included, ask some of the more difficult questions. Mm-hmm. How are you going to handle if there's a mistake?
Right. Yeah. We like those hard questions.
Yeah.
We as in him. I don't like those hard questions.
Right. One of the questions I like to ask clients is, so when we get done with this project and I come and I do a walkthrough, or my guys do a walkthrough at the very end, and you give them the final check and they get in the truck and drive away, like, what's the one thing you're going to remember other than the thing we left in place? So you can't say, oh, I'm going to remember the deck because I touch it every day. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's experience.
Right.
Did the guys show up and clean clothes every day? Did they stink? Hopefully
Right.
not.
Right.
Um,
We like having well groomed.
right. One of the ones I never want to hear, but you hear horror stories about all the time. Like, did one of my guys blow up your bathroom?
Mm-hmm.
That's a nightmare for me.
Right.
You know, but if we can say, you know, the guys showed up when they said they would, they kept us updated every day, they walked us through, they cleaned up after themselves, and they did a high quality project.
Right.
That's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like we've made it through some mud at times, but we finally have at the point that we have some really good guys under us. I mean, they do quality work and do show up and try to take care of a homeowner the same way they would want to be taken care of.
Is it fair to say they care?
Yeah, they do care. Yeah.
And Craig, pull that back up because it's hard to read from way over there.
He's old.
I think social media is absolutely doing that. Mm-hmm. I think being able to not just see finished pictures in Fine Home Building magazine, but to see Dr. Decks or some of these guys that are doing and showing how to do these really cool things. I think that's what's going to inspire. That's going to show kids you can do this and you can do it really well and you can make a good living at it.
Right.
And that's also one thing I really like to see with social media is I remember growing up, my stepdad, like, he didn't have a lot of contractor friends and they never talked shop. What's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do that? Everyone held all their secrets really close to the vest.
Right.
I'm in a couple different paid groups for contractors, but then I'm in a couple free ones too. And I probably interact with a couple hundred different contractors. And it's not uncommon to say, hey, what's the best way to do this? This is what I did.
Right.
Is there a better way out there? And people are jumping in and being like, oh, what have you ever thought about this? You know, Craig asking, how do you prevent fire? Like, some contractors would be like, well, buy a deck from us and I'll show you. No, cool. Let me tell you.
Right.
Because back to that pride thing and the increase in quality, like, a rising tide raises all ships. So if we're all getting better together, then the general level of execution in carpentry and construction becomes better.
Well, and some of those contractors that aren't willing to raise their quality and, you know, get better, their ship sinks, you know, and then the trade doesn't get such a bad rap and a bad name.
Absolutely. So good questions. I'm so happy. We've had a lot of questions.
We've had a lot of interaction today.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
We were talking about like different options you can add to decks. And like one of the big things, I don't know, it's probably just me, that comes to mind is like critter control and not having baby raccoons under your new deck and things like that. So what are the options that you offer to prevent that?
Oh, multiple. I mean, it can be something as simple as lattice work where, you know, it keeps little stuff can still get in, bugs, whatever. Or we could go, you know, we could do decking boards, run horizontally. I've done that before, run vertically. One of the cool ones I did, if you go on to, it's actually on our Google page, Justin Bearden put up some pictures for a deck we built for him when we did a whole house remodel. And we did some hardy panels and trimmed them out and made them look like old school paneling. That's cool. And it was a solid thing that like nothing can get through.
Right.
And I thought it was an old historic home, and I thought it really matched the house and the character that the house had.
So if you add something like that, that's solid, what about moisture control? You know, my terms are not the right terms, but you space out your decking boards on a deck or gap them or whatever you call that. And then it rains and water gets down there, but then you have something solid. Is it going to dry out under there? Where you're not worried about moisture piling up, or is that where you would use what you were talking about earlier with the dry, where it kind of drains out the side?
Both options are valid. You want to make sure that there's airflow. And so like when we did that paneling, we left it off the ground, and then this is going to get really nerdy, but we had a panel and then we had a frame in front of it, and we left gaps between that trim and the back paneling so the air could still flow through there. You're not so much worried about it getting wet down there. You just want to make sure it dries out so it doesn't smell like mold, or in the summer months, like breed mosquitoes, stuff like that.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that answered all my questions about decks. Do you have
And a couple others.
And yeah, anything else you want to add or?
No, I think we really covered it all.
Okay. What I know lead times are kind of crazy. But what is a typical lead time right now for a new deck?
Highly depends on if we're doing wood or if we're doing composite.
Okay.
So a wood deck, we could be there in 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
From the time of deposit, that's typically a good lead time for us. Obviously that's weather dependent. Everything we do, because we're exterior, is weather dependent. And so, we got one more comment. I want to see it in a minute. But composite, like, we had a deck. It took like 3.5 months to get the material,
right?
To get the decking. Okay. So it's really brand dependent, and honestly, it changes every day, or at least every week.
Right. And we've mentioned it before, but we really try to stay transparent with that. Whatever we tell you when we sign a contract, and then I follow up with you weekly and just kind of let you know the phases. We can't help if suppliers don't get us material as quick as they say they will, or that kind of thing. But we try to at least stay in communication and let them know. Yeah,
so that's one thing. If you're hiring a contractor, whether it's us or anyone else, it doesn't matter. Have grace, please, on materials. Actually, the house that we're siding right now, we had an interesting story. So we ordered the siding for this guy, and they said 12 to 13 weeks. And we got to week 14. And, we've been calling the supplier every week, asking, and we didn't get any of the answers we wanted. And then I get a call from the manager of the supply branch. And actually, you got the call.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know how we told you 12 or 13 weeks? It hasn't even hit production yet. We don't have the materials to produce it. It's going to be another 12 weeks. And so Kenzie got to call the homeowner, who thankfully had grace.
He was so kind. Thank goodness.
And he said he completely understood. It was out of our hands. And because we had communicated every week that, hey, we're checking on this. Yep, they're still telling us. He understood that, like, we are prioritizing this for you. We just have our hands tied. How many days later did the siding show up?
6.
6 days later instead of 12 weeks. So someone apparently had just forgotten to put it in the computer that they'd already produced it. And there's nothing we can do about that. So yeah, please have grace with your contractors on timeline and schedule.
And the person that calls you, not necessarily just the contractor. Have grace for me.
I say us as a contractor, like we're an entity, we're a company. And so you right. and me and the field guys and
right.
everybody, like I say that's all the same.
Yeah.
All right, pull up Craig's. He's got one more comment. I love the new way contractors are interacting as well. I've always hated that our trades have been so scared of competition. Can't do every remodel, and I'm not the right fit for every customer. The conversations between us help provide better builds and experiences for our customers, as well as slowly bringing more respect back to the trades. So, Craig, how'd you find us? It sounds like you're a contractor too. I'm guessing maybe from the contractor fight. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. And especially like as we niche down and as people get bigger, they tend to niche down a little bit more. Like I need a contractor that does really amazing bathrooms because I don't. I need someone who does roofs because we don't. I have a good electrician. I have a good plumber, But, yeah, we're all a team and we all have to work together to get this stuff done. And like you said, if we're doing our job right, there's plenty of work to go around.
Mm-hmm. So then he said,
great show, you guys, and much respect. Thanks, man. I really, really appreciate it.
And then, yeah, he's from the contractor fight.
Cool. Yeah. Hopefully you've been watching Tom for a while. He's the reason I do all this.
Mm-hmm.
He's the reason we started doing social media, and it's cool. We don't always get 1,000 likes or 1 million views, but I've had more people since we started this 7 weeks ago comment in person. Man, it looks like you guys are really busy. Oh, it's super cool that I see you on social media everywhere. You guys look like you're really killing it. So Tom was right. You don't have to get the likes or whatever, but people are seeing it and people are noticing it.
Right. But we do enjoy when you like and subscribe and share and help get the word out. So
it means the world, because every time you like, Facebook and YouTube and Insta, I'll go show it to someone else.
Mhm.
So the more people that like and comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, the more people we reach. And ultimately, our goal is to help educate and answer questions for as many as we can.
Right. So join us back here next week.
Yep.
11:30.
What are we talking about next week?
I didn't
Find out when you come see us.
I didn't bring that paper.
I tried to be a little smoother. You could have just said it's a secret. That's not how we roll, though.
But if there's something you want us to talk about, be sure to comment on this video, and we'll definitely get it on the schedule and answer any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
See you guys.
See you next week.